Who needs toilet paper anyways?
I'm happy that you're happy, but the place where you're supposed to have the toilet paper, you got this little shelf with 3 seashells on it.
He doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells.
Hey guys, long time no see. As you can see, I'm in the super duper Stay Puft Marshmallow Man suit here, so you know what it's time for. It's time to do some sanding. And that's what we're going to tackle today. See, we got the boat up on the hard here. Time to start cutting into this bottom. I got some real good tools here, or at least I'm going to be reviewing these tools. I think they're real good tools anyways. They got good reviews. I'm going to see how good they are. What we got is we have got the big duty Bosch, the Get 75-6 sander there. That thing is supposed to be a beast. Brand spanking new 3M full face respirator. And a set of 3M work tunes. So I'm gonna be trying all these out today. So before I dive into this, there's one question I just wanted to ask and answer is what kind of shape was the bottom of the boat in? So let's go take a look at that. Overall, starting at the bow, you can see that, yeah, she was due for bottom paint. She was starting to peel pretty good. You got these sections here like this, where the paint had totally peeled back to the old bottom paint. So she's been painted several times. She's got several layers of paint on her. I don't know how deep they all go, but we're gonna find out when we start sanding. There's the line from when she was in the water. And I didn't scrub that off yet. I just wanted to get an idea for what the type of growth was on there. So it wasn't terribly thick, probably because I'd been sailing the boat quite a bit, but she did have a lot of trash down on the keel. Now, one thing we were worried about is when we dove on the boat, there were a lot of little spots like this. We were worried these were going to be blisters. Well, that's not a blister. That was just this top paint coating, whatever this is. I don't know if it's a fairing compound paint, what it is, but that's all that was. And so that was a big relief there. That was just the paint getting really thick and flaking off. And that is a real problem with paint. When paint gets too thick, it has problems adhering and it'll actually blister up and it'll pop off. So there are paint blisters, not fiberglass blisters. And that saved me one heck of a lot of work. Coming up here, this is the through hole for the transducer. Well, actually, that is the transducer right there, but it's in its own little through hole that's been ferried into the side. I am going to have to dig all this out of here because I am replacing that transducer, but more on that later. The next thing we'll look at here, this is the intake for what was the old water maker and for the sink and everything. This is going to be getting replaced with a much larger through hole. This is going to become the engine intake, and also all the toilet and sink and everything else that uses salt water is going to feed off of this. All right, let's go get this thing done. Let's go have a look-see and see how she looks. So here we are. This is put my hand up here, give you an idea. It took about 15 or so minutes of sanding to get to that point there. So I suspect this is going to be a long job. It does tell me underneath this here, that's the original gel coat right there is what it looks like to me. I'm not going to sand any further than that white layer because I know at some spots the fiberglass kind of shows up with it there. So I think that's pretty much the bottom of the boat. The good news is that gel coat has held up really well over the years, which I mean, this, if I knock on that, you can hear how solid that is. This boat was built hell for stout. So the sander is working. It is working well. I'm not sure what this bottom paint stuff is. I'm thinking it's some kind of copper coat or something like that. It's got that real, well, it's like that reddish color to it. I'm just not sure when I'm looking up at this stuff here. I'm just not sure what this is. What type of bottom paint that is. It looks to me like commercial ship paint, which is kind of odd to me, which I know the boat did spend some time down in Mexico. It's been around a little bit. I don't know if that's a fairing compound, if it's a bottom paint or what, but it is the stuff that's flaking off the bottom. It is the stuff that was giving the appearance of blisters. So I know all that is going to need to come off the boat because I keep finding little spots where barnacles have grown into it. Just like these here, you can see a barnacle had grown up in there and the paint failed, and then it's chipped all the way down to the glass underneath. So it's going to have to come all the way down to clean that type of stuff up and then get a proper bottom on. Now what I am planning on doing is going back in with an epoxy barrier coat and then redoing the whole bottom with that epoxy barrier coat and then putting the bottom paint over that. So that'll give me a really good watertight layer, and I think that'll work out really well. Another thing we have to think about is down here on the keel. I don't know what I'm going to wind up doing at the keel. I know other Spencer owners have wrapped the keel in fiberglass and totally encapsulated it. I do like that idea on one end because it means if the keel bolts fail, the fiberglass will still hold it to the hull. The other side of that is, though, that I don't really care for is if you run into anything, that keel absorbs the shock as it is. And if there's fiberglass over it, it's going to do damage to that fiberglass. And that fiberglass, if it cuts through the bottom coat on there, it'll blister, and then all that's going to have to be redone. So I could be inviting problems. I know that this boat has bronze keel bolts in it. And so that being the case, I'm going to check them out, give them the ring test. And if they sound good, I'm just going to leave it at that. Well, I'm out of the poopy suit and wanted to show you guys what I got done. So this is it right here. This area is about 16 by 12 inches. It took about an hour to do. Whatever that red stuff is, it's wearing like iron. It's taken a whole lot of working on it to get that down. It's really taken quite a bit of effort. Hey guys, here we are. Just want to take a walk up and look at this and kind of show what all is going on at the bottom down here. I mean, she is in underneath that okay shape. There's evidence of a couple of blisters that are there that have already been patched. There's a couple small ones that I need to go over now, and just a couple of little pockets that need some attention, like this little thing right here. That's a factory defect. The glass is kind of pinched right there, but that'll be nothing, just a little bit of filler to get that out. And so sitting on the hard here all winter has actually been an advantage because it means that all this has had a chance to dry out. I'm not finding any moisture in it anywhere, so that's a really good thing. And so you can see this is about where we're up to right now. And it's looking pretty good at this point. I'm feeling pretty good about it. This has been the bottom job from hell, though. I've been out here sanding on this thing and sanding on this thing. What you're seeing here is approximately 24 hours worth of work. I mean, that's about 2 days solid worth of work. I've been out here sanding on this thing every nice day I can get the last couple of weeks. And it is just wearing me down. And I took today off to spend a little time with the dog. We went down to the beach, had some fun. But let me get back into this. We're going to show you guys. And so here is the vacuum and the dust deputy. Both of these work really well. That dust deputy is pretty much completely full at the moment, so we've got to take it and go empty it out. And then I don't know how the vacuum's doing. I'm going to have to check that out as well. But it usually stays pretty empty with this thing, but I'm sure that it's got some in it now that we've been sanding here, so it'll be good to get that emptied out as well. Coming back around, you can see about how much we have left on the stern here, and that won't be too bad to get this all sanded down. You can see all the places here that this stuff has been coming off, and that's all over the hull like that. And the thing is everywhere one of those would come off, it would start growing. So it was really bad around the propeller here, really bad around the through hull, really bad around that one there. And so that was a real problem because that's where she was growing, and that would really slow the boat down for two different reasons. The first of which being is when you have the growth on there, obviously, but even once I went in and cleaned the boat, you'd have this little ridge that forms at the end of that, and so anywhere the water's flowing across that, you have this little slight disruption of the flow, and that just, it's something that the water just kind of drags onto, and it slows the boat down a little bit. And that's like why on airplanes, they use flush head rivets instead of stick-out rivets on the faster airplanes that are out there, like on the jet fighters and everything. They use a countersunk flathead rivet for that reason. Is every one of those rivets sticking up on the outside of an airplane, it causes just a little bit more drag than the one before it. And so it'll slow the airplane down significantly, and that's going through the air. So it's the same principle on the boat. The difference is here you're pushing water, which has a much higher density than the air. And, you know, even though you're going at slower speed, high density, it still slows you down pretty good. So getting these things sanded all the way down, getting them cleaned off, and then once we go back on, we'll go on with a really good epoxy barrier coat. That is going to help out a ton. You see everywhere one of these forms, you've got just a little bit of a lip there. The thing is, below this here, that is right down to the gel coat, so it's peeling back off to the gel coat. So I think what happened is they didn't get this completely clean before they put this on here or something, or maybe, I don't know if the bond failed or what, but it did not have enough of a tooth on the surface to where this epoxy that they put over the top would adhere to that. And so that's what's created the problem. So all along, you can just see place after place after place where this is an issue. And it's been this way across the whole bottom. There's Dexter. What are you doing, Dexter? You being a good boy? And where a lot of that problem was up here at the water line, and you can see how bad that was, so it would just grow right along the water line there, which would really slow the boat down. So having this all taken care of, having good bottom paint on there again, and a good boot stripe, that'll take care of all of this. So hopefully what this means is that when we go back in the water, we're gonna have significantly more speed out of the boat. Under sail with a perfectly clean bottom, and really good winds, which were about 18 knots. I've seen approximately 9 knots through the water on this boat. She can really fly. And under motor, though, with a perfectly clean bottom, we'd barely get up to about 6 knots. And so I'm hoping having this cleaned up, maybe we'll get 6.2, 6.3, 6.5 would be optimal. 7 would be out of this world. I don't think we're going to get 7, but if I do, you'll see me dancing for joy, because that will be an amazing thing, because it'll just mean getting places so much faster. Now, as the bottom had gotten worse on this, she started slowing down once she started growing, and we'd be going places at like 4.8 knots, which takes forever to get where you're going at that speed. Hey, here is the setup we're using. It is the Bosch HEPA here, and using the Dust Deputy. And I gotta say, I am actually very pleased with this Dust Deputy. And let's go ahead and pop this thing open and see how much stuff is inside of it here. And every time you disconnect these, there's a bit of that dust in there that wants to come out, so that's kind of a pain. Oh yeah, look at that. I mean, she is good and full. I think she's about ready to get emptied there. You can see that is sucked up. That is all stuff that's been sanded off of the bottom of this boat, so that'll give you an idea. With just doing that much of the hull there, that's how much has come into this bucket. Let's see how the inside of this looks. And not bad there. There is this internal bag here, and that is it's got some powder in the bottom, but it is not full. I'm not going to bother changing that. So that's not, I'm pretty happy with how this works. I mean, there's just a bit of stuff in that internal bag, and I don't want to disrupt that internal bag because I don't want to get it all over in there. The internal bag's working, it's doing its job, so we're just going to leave it. Now to head off the inevitable question before they get here of, why don't you just sandblast? 1, the yard doesn't allow it here. For 2, softer material, gel coat fiberglass on bottom, this epoxy copper mixture here on top is harder than the surface below, so if I go through and sandblast this, it's going to tear into the hull big ways. Why didn't I go get a gel planer? Well, the thing is, with a gel planer, once you go across that gel planer, you've got exposed fiber ends on here, and that means that you have to go back in through and layer a flesh, layer of glass over the top of everything, and I don't want to refiberglass the entire bottom of the boat. And then people have said, well, why don't you scrape it off of there? And the reason is because this is hard enough, a scraper just slides across the surface of it. It'll take the bottom paint off the top of the copper, but it won't even mar the copper. I mean, it'll just give it surface scratches, but it won't even go into it. So scraper, I tried one. I've actually got a really good one. It was totally useless. And you can see in this top box here, what I've got in here is all my sandpaper. And what I've been using for this are these Arbanet Ace HDs, and these are a 40 grit paper. And it has taken me almost the whole box just to do what I've done here. You can see here the stack of these that I've gone through. And you can see this is a pad that it's see-through. You can see my hand on the other side of it there. And that allows the dust collection to go through the head of the sander. The dust collection on them is way better than on just the regular 40 grit. I started using these 40 grits here, and these were not great. I mean, they work, and if I was just doing some light sanding, I'm sure these would be fine. But for what we're doing on the bottom, I needed these, more aggressive grit, better dust collection. And that's the pad that those go on. I've got the pad that fits these. It has more holes in it up on there. The dust collection on them is way better than on just the regular 40 grit. I started using these 40 grits here, and these were not great. I mean, they work, and if I was just doing some light sanding, I'm sure these would be fine. But for what we're doing on the bottom, I needed these, more aggressive grit, better dust collection. And And that's the pad that those go on. I've got the pad that fits these. It has more holes in it up on there. And underneath there, you can see the dust collection head. They got all those holes down there, and then that hooks up to the vacuum port here on the back, so it can suck right through the head. Now, the thing about it is, one of these pads will only do about 2.5 or 3 square feet, so that's only about that much area. And I will put the math in the video and tell you how much that costs a piece, but this is a fairly expensive stripping process, but this is the best process I've found. Oh, the big question is, would I buy this gear again? Would I recommend this gear? The Bosch HEPA vacuum, absolutely. Works fantastically. I love how it's got the thing where when you kick the sander on, it'll fire up. That's a great feature. So I can run a hose down inside the boat, run an extension cord down in there, and sand on things inside. Have the vacuum sitting on deck. That is super handy. As far as the Dust Deputy goes, what do I think of this product? I think it is good. I wish that the cyclone on it was just a little bit bigger and had just a little bit more separation power for that fine dust, because it's that super, super fine dust is what's making it all the way to the bag. That's not separating. I don't know if that's within the realm of possibility or not. I'm not an engineer. I don't know the science on that. But those are my thoughts on that. Now, as far as the Bosch sander goes, that big 6-inch turbo, I do like it. I think it's really good. It's got a pretty good ergonomic grip on it. You know, my hands fit around it well, and I've been able to sand through it most of the day, putting in 4 to 5, maybe 6 hours a day holding on to that thing. And I don't get tired of holding it. I mean, my arms get tired of holding it, but my hands are able to hold on to it pretty well. I do have large hands, so keep that in mind. If you're smaller stature, smaller hands, it may not be the best sander for you, but it's big enough. It's got enough horsepower. It is able to tear through the copper on this and sand it off of there. And normally the dust collection on that with those arbonets is really good. I've done some sanding in the boat. Hardly any dust gets by. The problem, and we'll walk over here so I can show you this, the problem with the hole over here, anywhere we have one of these little spots that's coming off here, you can see it flakes. Well, the thing is, all this copper is brittle, and so it comes off in chunks, and then those chunks wind up underneath the sanding disc, and they just kind of explode. And so you get a good amount of dust that comes out of that whenever that happens. And so I'm really having to stay on top of it, clean it up in here, and for that, I got the little dust wand here, and this thing has been fantastic for that. I just go through, vacuum up the tarp, works really good. So guys, that is my take on this bottom job from hell here. It is really turning into a challenge. It has been really tiring. The upside of it is, once it's done, it'll be done, and it'll be done right. I could have just gone in and painted back over it, but if I had just gone back in, painted over the top of it, what would have happened is all the little spots like that where it's flaking off, we would have just developed more of those, and every one of those, even though I'd painted over the top of it because it's still a divot, it would have created drag and slowed the boat down. So I'm trying to get as much speed out of this boat as I can so I can get places quickly. I know people are like, oh, you're not going to deal with, be like, oh, you can't go anywhere fast on a sailboat. It's all relative, dude. Deal with it. So I expect the process here over the next couple of weeks. I was supposed to go in the water April 8th. I can tell you right now that's not happening because we still have lots of stuff to do here. Namely, I need to get these 2 through holes glassed back in, and then I need to get the new through hole put in that one because it's going to require a bit of a modification to the hole. Well, that'll be a topic for another video at another time. And then over here on the port side, we need to replace this through hole with a larger through hole. And what that's going to allow us to do is run all the saltwater systems off of this one. That's going to be the only saltwater intake on the boat. It's going to handle the engine, the water maker, the toilet. If I still run the toilet saltwater flush, I'm debating going freshwater. We'll see on that. It'll run the anchor wash down and the deck wash downs that I'm going to put on here. So that'd be a pretty fantastic setup. And we are going to have to remove the engine intake through hole, that one right there. So we'll get that sanded down, glassed over, and faired out, and it'll be totally gone. Now, the big advantage of this, we're going to talk about next week, and that's going to be about getting rid of holes in the boat. That's going to be the whole topic of next week's video. We're going to be talking about all the through holes, everything we're doing there. So make sure you guys check into that one. We'll catch up with y'all later.